G'day guys, it's Steve Morgan here from Fishing Monthly magazines, and I have been walking through the crowd looking for celebrities to bring up here on the Mercury stand here at the Sydney International Boat Show for 2016. And of course, everybody here who knows fishing knows this man here, Steve Starling. And Steve Starling, you were very well known as a Minn Kota user for many, many years, and you made the switch recently to MotorGuides, and MotorGuides, of course, distributed by Mercury Marine, MotorGuide's new Xi5 platform of electric motors. And from what I've seen on your videos on YouTube, on your YouTube channel, etc., and for the articles you've done for Fishing Monthly magazine, you've really, really loved the platform. So I think it's a good, ideal opportunity to talk to the people at the show here and the people down that camera lens about the exact advantages of that Xi5.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it really ties into the type of fishing that I like to do, and I like to see myself as a finesse fisherman. My favourite styles of fishing are chasing bream, bass, flathead. I'll go up north and chase barra. It's mostly enclosed waters. I do a lot of freshwater fishing, I do a lot of estuary fishing, and to me, pinpoint accuracy in placement of the boat is so often what it's about when whether I'm throwing lures or I'm throwing flies. And that was why I made the switch to MotorGuide. I'd heard how good their spot locking ability is, as they call it, anchor. When you hit that button, it just locks onto that spot. And you know, even if it's just blown off a little bit by wind or dragged away by current, it comes straight back onto it. And I found that everything I'd heard about it was absolutely right. It's extremely accurate, and to me, that's a big part of the battle when I'm using an electric motor to fish to a snag or to fish to a weed bed edge or whatever. There's another function called jog that I use probably more than anything else on that remote control. Once I've locked myself into a spot, I can hit any one of the 4 direction arrows and the boat will move 1.5 metres, about 5 feet on the old scale that I still think in that direction, and re-lock. So if I'm fishing along the face of a weed bed or a series of snags or the front of an oyster lease, I can work a couple of casts into a spot, jog to the right, move 1.5 metres, work that bit of water, jog to the right, 1.5 metres, and just work my way all the way along an edge. And something I discovered for myself, I wasn't even sure that this worked, but if I want to hit the button 3 times, it moves me 3 of those increments. 3 times 1.5. If I was good at maths, I'd know what that was. Yeah.
I think, Starler, that's possibly the only jogging you've done in the last 10 years, is that right?
Yeah, the only jogging I do is over to the pie stand or on the MotorGuide remote control. You can lock waypoints into it. You know, you can put spots in. I do this quite a bit, and I probably use that a little bit differently to a lot of other people too. A little trick that I've worked out, if I'm fishing really gnarly snag country for blue-nosed bream or bass or mangrove jacks up north or whatever, I stop about 30 metres back from the spot, put a mark in, call that one spot number 1. You can save 8 of them on the buttons on the remote control, which I have hanging around my neck. Put that spot in, and then I go into where I want to cast from, might be another 20 metres closer, and I start fishing that snag. If I hook a big bruiser in there really close to cover, rather than trying to drag him out, because the first thing that happens, and it's amazing, people don't realise that a fish that big can drag a 5 metre boat around. They actually do swing the boat around. When you get a fish on, it'll pull the boat through the water. If I get a big fish and he's going towards that bad stuff, I hit button 1 and that boat just hauls out of there. It takes me back to that waypoint back out behind me that I preset, and I've dragged some thumping big fish out of cover doing that. It's a nice little trick.
I noticed that when you're fighting a fish as well, if you're pumping and winding on a fish and letting it get its head turned around, they can really get turned around and get back into the snag, and that really soft, even pressure, they tend to follow you out a lot, don't they? And that smoothness is something that that MotorGuide's really good at.
That's a really good point. And if you've ever watched the old videos of the guys poling the tuna, you know, and they're throwing 50-kilo tuna over their shoulders on a bamboo pole or whatever. It's all about using the momentum of the fish and not letting it get its head down. If that tuna turns its head and gets it down, those blokes, the pole either snaps or they just let go of it. They can't hang on to it. So what Steve was saying is exactly right. And I used to watch Bushy and Chris Slick Wright do this with bream in the oyster leases. They wouldn't just tighten their drags, they would absolutely lock the drags, get the pliers out if necessary and lock them up. And when they hit a bream over the top of a couple of oyster racks, their theory was if they could keep its head up and slide it across the surface, they could land some thumping big brim. If it got its head down and turn, it'd either break their line, pull the hooks out, or cut them off on the oyster leases. But if you can keep that fish coming, and that's a big part of that system that I'm using as well, just haul out of there and drag that fish away.
Starlo, one of the things that a lot of people that use these Xi5s talk about is the speed of the rotation of the head, and it's not like the old days where it just takes several seconds for that thing to do a 90-degree arc. How fast is that Xi5? Yeah,
they are noticeably faster than anything I've used in the past, and I suppose, you know, there's always been a long-running argument between the guys that like the electronic controls like I do and the cable steer guys. If you watch a lot of the American Bass Pro tournaments and everything, those guys are all on their cable steers that have an immediate response. You move, you tip your foot back, the head goes like that, everything's hardwired. I've trained myself over the years to fish electronically because I think there are a lot of advantages as well, particularly if you want to set up and just work along an edge, and also you're not nailed to that spot on the foredeck, which I find really annoying with the cable steer. You can't go anywhere, you've got your foot on there. But that was always the problem in the past. If you wanted to go through 180 degrees, it was like, you know, make yourself a cup of tea and have a smoke while it's going round through the turn. Nowadays, with the MotorGuide, press the button and it comes around noticeably faster. There's not much lapse at all.
One last thing, Starlo, is reliability. We're always a bit sceptical in Australia before we give these things some field testing, and you've given this Xi5 some rugged field testing, and what have the results been?
Look, I'm coming up to the 2-year mark now on my unit, and I can honestly say I have not missed an hour of fishing because of any faults with the unit whatsoever. I've knocked some paint off it in places, and I've fished pretty hard. I fished the oyster leases and everything else, and where I've knocked paint off, I've got some little corrosion issues. I've stayed on top of them with a bit of primer and a bit of paint. It's a matter of looking after these units. I always wash them down thoroughly with fresh water after I've used it in the salt, and give it a squirt with you know, one of your good aerosol lubricants every now and again, the bits and pieces that move. But touch wood, so far I've found the durability to be spot on with the MotorGuide.
Well, thanks for that update, Starlo. And for the people that are watching on the internet, can you give us a bit of a heads up to your YouTube channel so that people can see some of your reviews of some of these fantastic products?
Yeah, well, my actual YouTube clip on the MotorGuide Xi5 is my top rating clip on that channel. It's the Starlo Gets Real channel. So if you go to YouTube and just search Starlo Gets Real, you'll find my YouTube clip on the MotorGuide Xi5. You can also catch up with me on Starlo Fishing, my Facebook page. I've got an Instagram account, which is Starlo with a double S. I'm all over the place. Yeah,
you are as much social media as any 14-year-old nowadays, Starlo. If I had a spare hand, I'd shake it. Here we go, mate. I'm going to get you off the stage. I know you've got other commitments here at the boat show, but let's get Mark up from Fish for Life, because we met this gentleman who runs Evolution, powered with a couple of the big 150 3-litre Mercury 4-strokes on the back. And at that time, you were about to embark on a charity run around Australia from Melbourne all the way around. Was it anti-clockwise?
Yeah, it's anti-clockwise, also including Tasmania, and that's where we went around first.
Yeah, and fitted out with the Mercury boat, the Evolution boat, the Mercury motors. You've been on the water a bit since I've seen you last, so can you give us a bit of an update and just tell us how these 150s are performing?
The 150s are performing fantastic. I've got not a bad word to say about them. The power, the other day we were cruising along at 25 to 27 knots, and one of the volunteers that was on board with us said, "Oh, can you give us a look at what this boat can actually do?" And I said, all right. So I pushed the throttles down to full, and it threw him back into the seat, and he said, "I cannot believe how powerful they are for 150s." Yep. And with them being a 3-litre motor, as we know, is a large motor, the power and the performance is fantastic. The other thing that was also commented on by one of the volunteers was the vessel view. How you can integrate it with the electronics, and we've got the Simrad electronics on board, and it's integrated with the Simrad electronics. And this gentleman who runs a charter boat out of King Island says that he was going home to order some because he was that pleased with them. We've had some fairly rough conditions and gone through some pretty intense times on the sea already, and we've only travelled probably 2,500 kilometres so far. But at no time have I felt any issues with these motors. They've just performed and purred along the whole time.
Well, let's rewind a little bit. Why the hell are you driving a boat around Australia in the first place?
Yeah, look, I hear this crazy. You're crazy all the time. It's a passion because I've lost some friends, some dear friends and close friends to our family to cancer. So I wanted to do my share to try and help raise as much funds and awareness to try and help these people. So when I looked at it, I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, the only hope I've got of doing anything is within the industry that I'm in. And being running charter boats and dealing with good companies that have come on board and sponsored us, being Mercury, Simrad, Evolution, I said, okay, well, that's the area I have to go in because that's where we're going to get the people to help. So that's why I'm doing the journey. Since undertaking the journey, I know that it's only been done twice before. That was with Mercury's on board the whole time as well. So when you look at that, Mercury's got the runs on the board when it goes to going around Australia in a small craft. The only thing that we're hoping to get up our sleeve, as for Fish for Life on top of helping everybody, is that nobody's done it in a single vessel, including Tasmania. So that's something that we'd like to do.
Now, you've already done the Tasmanian leg, and we all know that the weather, the further south you go, the weather can get pretty nasty. Tell us your nastiest weather story you've got so far, and possibly it may involve the Apple Isle.
Yes, it does. We went down the west coast of Tassie. We left from Smithton and then we went down to Strawn. We had a beautiful day that day. And then when we left Strawn, we went through the Hell's Gates, they call them, out of Strawn. Fantastic place to see. As we were travelling down the west coast, we knew we had a front, that there was an opportunity this front might catch us, and we knew there was 50, 60 knots at least in this front. So we naturally took an educated risk and we said we can beat this front and we can get down to Dover and we can do it quite safely. So as we were travelling down, we had fantastic conditions with, you know, half a metre, and everything was running great. We seen a few tuna. There was a couple of tuna that were around 100 kilos in a school, and we didn't have the time to stop and have a fish for them as much as we wanted to.
That's a travesty.
Oh, it hurt. And as we're getting down to the bottom, turning into come around the bottom southwest side of Tasmania to head up to Dover, that front caught us. And when it caught us, it was about 8 o'clock at night. We had 20 miles left of a 160-mile journey, and it took us 2.5 hours to do 20 miles. We had 30 knots headwind. We also had the current was running the opposite direction to the headwind, and we had the wind blowing across all of it. The only time we knew it was a big wave, because we don't have big spotlights on the boat, was you would just see only white water coming at you. And with only white water coming at you, you definitely know that you got a big breaking wave. So it was a matter of hang on, and we got over the top of it. We kept plugging along slowly. We got down to 6 to 7 knots a lot of the time. And then James, who's on board with me, called up a local crayfish guy on the VHF. He gave us some GPS marks to get in close in between some reefs, which was still scary. We had breaking water all around us, and we had a matter of being able to get over through these reefs in about 5 metres of water, and that got us out of it.
Well, and you know what? There is definitely nowhere to hide out there on the ocean, is it? How big is the boat that you're running in?
It's a 6.5 metre boat.
Yeah.
So it's not a big boat to be out on the ocean.
Now, give us some estimates. How many kilometres are you going to do by the time you've gone around Australia, and how long is it going to take you?
Okay, so we estimate between 16,500 kilometres to around 18,000 kilometres, and we say about 148 days, and that's an approximate. That can be blown out, as we all know.
You betcha, and you never know when those fronts are going to catch you. Now, if people out there are watching on the internet, they want to know how they can donate to your cause, because let's face it, everybody knows someone who's been affected by cancer. Where can they go to help you out, to help them out?
If they hop on our website, which is fishforlife.org.au, there's a donate button there. They can donate via that. Otherwise, they can hop on our Facebook and they can send a private message, and one of our office girls will get to them and help them out.
Fantastic. Well, I know you're going to want to hang around here and maybe talk about some of those 3 litre 150 Mercuries. They're a great, reliable four-stroke. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing, and I hope to maybe catch you at another boat show in the future and get some more crazy stories about weather, 100-kilo tuna and driving a boat around Australia.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.